Joining us now is Pat Buchanan, conservative commentator, columnist, author. Pat, your quick take on last night.
Well, first, you've taken my quick take. My column tomorrow, working title, which I just started on, is Memo to Trump, Trade Bolton for Tulsi. Listen, I thought, they kept her out of the first half, and I had predicted to Newsmax that she would make a real splash here and she would take up the foreign policy issue with her unique perspective from the Democratic Party standpoint. And she hadn't had a chance. And then in the second half, I thought she did remarkably well with the time she was given. And she introduced the whole idea of foreign policy, which was pretty much eliminated from the debate, which is crucial. So I think what she's done, she won the Washington Examiner poll, the Drudge poll. A lot of folks have praised her performance. And I think she's achieved the key thing that she had to achieve, Laura, which is move herself up from 1% or wherever she's at to 2, 3, or 4 so that she gets into the next round of debates. And I think she's accomplished that. And I think she's going to get a real response. It's only a partial slice of the nation, but she impressed an awful lot of people.
Right.
I thought it was a good debate. I was interested in it, and it told us a lot about that party. I'd hate to be a hedge fund operator up in New York if they get elected.
Oh no, this is
they all go to the wall.
This they free the illegal immigrants from the detention facilities and put the hedge fund people in the detention camps. That's
exactly right, and there ain't going to be any blankets.
No blankets or no aluminum foil blankets for them. This is Tulsi Gabbard, of course, from Hawaii last night.
We have to bring our troops home from Afghanistan. We are in a place in Afghanistan where we have lost so many lives. We've spent so much money that's coming out of every one of our pockets, money that should be going into communities here at home, meeting the needs of the people here at home. We are no better off in Afghanistan today than we were when this war began.
She sounds like Trump sounded in 2016. Unfortunately, Trump didn't pull the troops out.
Well, exactly right. I think she's done it. She's done a number of things that, again, she put herself on the map. There's a lot of comments about her. People are saying she did it. She's one of the big winners, but she's got a unique position. She's introduced foreign policy into the Democratic debate. I think folks are going to have to talk about it more. And I think that she's going to get, even if it's not majority support, even if she doesn't win, I think she's going to influence the debate. So it was a great victory for her. But I should mention, there are others, and I'm not big fans of them, I thought did pretty well from their standpoint. And one was Mayor de Blasio.
The first question I would have asked de Blasio.
You don't share that view.
No. You know why? I guess it's colored by the fact that when I go to New York, these blocks that used to be clean and safe when Rudy Giuliani was mayor, or even Bloomberg was mayor, are filthy, filled with human waste, and disgusting, and the pot smell everywhere. So, the first question I would have asked him is, why do New Yorkers hate you? That's what I would have asked him. So yeah, he bloviated on, and he's a big guy and a tough talker, but I don't know. I'm always focused on people who have a chance of winning, and he doesn't. He has no chance of winning. But I think the one that did an awful lot of talking, I think more than anyone else, was Beto and Cory Booker. Yeah. But Cory Booker he seems like a nice guy. But can you remember exactly what he said, or what exact point he made? He goes on and on and on. And then Beto, I thought, was on defensive all night long. But I do think Elizabeth. Let me talk about the number one, folks. That's Elizabeth Warren. She dominated the first half hour of the debate. She made her crisp responses. She's energetic. She's got her lines down. It has a real appeal to the left of the party. But I will say this: as a general election candidate, and she has the best chance to be there, she lacks the extra dimension. Of course, Trump had this extra dimension from The Apprentice and from being a character and a big figure and everything. And she seems like almost pure ideology, an extract of ideology. And you need some personality
and range, I think, candidates do. We all familiar. I mean, when Ronald Reagan walked in the first time he was elected, I mean, he came to a governor's conference in his cowboy hat and boots and all of this, you know, and he just made a tremendous splash. And for a candidate to succeed, to be elected president of the United States, I think they need something of that extra dimension.
Yeah, I think you're right. Donnie Deutsch from MSNBC, you remember him, Pat? He was on.
Yeah, I know Donnie.
Yeah, he was on last night after the debate and said this.
I do not believe Elizabeth Warren on stage with Donald Trump beats him. And I think if we're honest with ourselves and we look hard at ourselves, I think a lot of people agree with me. When he can blanket Elizabeth Warren as a socialist and he's on stage with her, the Democrats lose. I still, in my heart of hearts, don't see anybody on that stage tonight that would beat Trump.
You know, I know Donnie pretty well. I mean, I worked with him up at MSNBC for years, and I don't usually agree with him, but I think he's dead right here. I mean, I'm looking at the state. This is why. Let me go back to the De Blasio. Whatever you think about it, he's a big presence on stage. He's angry. He's committed. And there's a difference to the size of the guy. I'm not. He's the least popular figure in New York City, perhaps. But you know, he's somebody who would, when he came out on stage, he would say, "This is going to be a heavyweight fight." And I think that Elizabeth Warren, as I say, you got to get beyond the neo-socialist ideology. You know, government, we're going to do this. We're going to pay for the kids. We're going to take care of this. We're going to tax the rich. All of these things. She doesn't go beyond that. And this, again, let me get back to Tulsi Gabbard, who's physically a very, very attractive woman. And she looks like, and looks very bright, and she's crisp, and she's talking about different things, foreign policy, getting our troops home from war. She's been an officer over there in Kuwait and Iraq. And so she's got that, she has an extra dimension. I know she's started at 1%. But I hope for the sake of a really interesting election that she really rises up and is in the semifinals, if you will, of the Democratic nomination run.
Well, I think, again, I said to my producer this morning, Tulsi Gabbard should just be a Republican. I mean, she should just say, on a lot of these other issues, the Democrat Party has gone so far left, I can't really relate to them. I'm seeing where the country is, and I'm going to run as a Republican. I just don't see her as a Democrat today. I really don't. I don't see her
I don't see her getting the nomination.
No,
at all. But I do see, in terms of the debate, which I'm interested. Otherwise, we're all, there was at the end of the debate, they asked everybody what was a great threat. And I think the majority said China and climate change, although de Blasio said Russia because they're interfering with our democracy, which wasn't much of a good answer in my judgment, but it was different. And the one fellow said Trump and things. But they talk, when you talk about China, you're talking about foreign policy. And there was really no focus on it last night. But again, I think if there's a focus on it tonight, it will be because of her.
By the way, we have other news that we're going to get to. Pat, the Supreme Court, with John Roberts voting with the liberals, held that the addition of the citizenship question to the 2020 census does not violate the Constitution's enumerations clause of the Census Act, but that the district court was warranted in remanding the case to the Department of Commerce to provide a non-pretextual explanation for adding the question. So, in other words, it's not a victory for the conservative jurists. It's not a full victory for the left, but John Roberts voted with the liberals on this. So
I think the effect of the decision.
I think the census question. Yeah, I think the question regarding citizenship cannot go in, and the July 1st, I think, is when the census has to be printed. So the census questionnaire has to be printed or something. It's going to the printers probably July 1st.
It was a defeat for Trump and the Commerce Department. Huh?
Yeah. So we got. How is it that the liberals never evolved to a more originalist understanding of the Constitution, but our people always, except for the stars like Justice Thomas, Our people never, just seem to one after the other evolve to the left.
I wrote something on that. I went back to all the Supreme Court justices appointed by Democrats, and there weren't that many. There was Goldberg and Fortas, and then you get up to all the way up to Carter. I don't think got any. You get up to Clinton. You get Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and you get Kagan, and you get Sotomayor. There was not a single Democratic liberal who moved away from the liberal position, but you get the Republican appointees. 3 of Nixon's 4 nominees voted for Roe v. Wade. Oh. We know about Souter. You know about the other Republicans, John Paul Stevens and the others who have gone south. It is remarkable. You're right. Some of ours, a significant slice of ours, turn into moderates like Sandra Day O'Connor, and some of them go left like Souter and John Paul Stevens. And it's remarkable. I think it's the effect of the culture, which is clearly moving leftward, and the stare decisis, take the Warren Court decisions and make sure those stand. But you're right. The Supreme Court has moved the country steadily leftward, and we've had many great justices appointed, or not many, a number of them, like Scalia and Thomas. But overall, Alito, that's not the case.
Disappointment.
The disappointment with the Supreme Court on the part of conservatives has been in effect since we had Uncle Earl Warren on the bench.
No, it's and Brett Kavanaugh on a number of decisions has been a complete and utter disappointment. Look, I think it's the human condition, right? It's easier to be liked than to be principled.
You're in the city, and
right.
You don't want somebody throwing a salad on you or something when you're going into the restaurant.
You know what I say, Pat? If they throw food at me, I always like, please remember I'm gluten free. Could you make sure that? I told that to Nigel Farage. Pat, I told that to Nigel Farage when I was in London for the D-Day stuff. I met with him at a pub, and I said, next time they throw a milkshake with you, Britt, you should have a straw in your coat pocket. Pull it out and sip it. Sip a little bit of it from your lapel and say, I really prefer strawberry. I mean, you just have to laugh. Like the Trump baby balloon. If I were Trump, I would say I love the baby balloon because I love Trump and I love babies. So I love the Trump baby balloon. He should just adopt it as his own. Then they won't fly it anymore.
Demand it be put up on his foreign trips, huh?
Yeah. He should fly his own Trump baby balloon. It'd be hilarious. I would because they're all so ridiculous. These are not serious people. That the power of satire and ridicule, as Pat knows, because he's so funny, are just, there's awesome. Anyway, I want to get back to the Democrats for a moment because, of course, the Democrats have to say that the economy is no good, despite the right track, wrong track numbers, which just came out that show incredible improvement since Obama. With more people thinking now that we're going on the right track than the wrong track as compared to Obama. So this is what some of them said about today's economy. Let's listen.
When you've got an economy that does great for those with money and isn't doing great for everyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple. We need to call it out.
We have people that work full-time jobs and still can't make a living wage. It is about time that we have an economy that works for everybody, not just the wealthiest in our nation.
Right now, we have a system that favors those who can pay for access and outcomes.
Are they talking about the economy after the internet crash in 2000, like March 2000?
It is unbelievable when you get Hispanic unemployment and African American unemployment and white unemployment at their lowest levels almost in 50 years. And you've seen the steady growth of the economy under Trump. And to talk about it as though we're in, 1931 or something like that is just preposterous. But again, this is what, what speaks for the Democratic Party is this ideology. I mean, the anti-corp. I mean, look, I'm not. Sometimes I've got a populist streak in me, and I'm not an enthusiast of these transnational corporations. Mm-hmm. But they act as though the capitalist system is somehow the enemy of the American people and the American nation, and those who succeed most are the worst enemies. And it's remarkable. But I think again, when Elizabeth Warren does that in the context of a Democratic debate and a Democratic audience, that may come off very well. But when you go out into a debate with Trump, and she starts that, and his answers about the unemployment numbers and how well we have done, and the American people, I think, will understand that as the polls show, that this is not 1929.
Yeah, he did that on Sunday with Stephanopoulos, I believe it was, or was it Chuck Todd, I guess. And he's like, well, look at this chart. The chart shows that the economy. This is Chuck Todd. The economy has been improving since Obama. And Trump. This is like stuff Trump knows. Okay, Trump looks at him and goes, "Oh, really? Where's that chart for GDP? And where's that chart for confidence and right track? I mean, where are the other charts that actually matter?" And Chuck Todd's like, "Wait, is there a producer in my ear? Can give me a rejoinder to that?" So again, these aren't serious people. These are people who Google before they, get on air, and they're going to try to tell us that up is down and left is right, and that just doesn't resonate ultimately. But I think what does resonate back to Tulsi Gabbard, Pat, is this idea that America is funding the world as we have men and women defecating outside about 200 yards from the Capitol, which is what we have. So what's going on here with that?
Well, this is something. This argument's been going on since the end of the Cold War about America's foreign policy. Having won the Cold War, why didn't we and having seen the Soviet Empire collapse and the Soviet Union break apart into 15 pieces, why didn't we tell the Europeans, look, our job is done. We've defended you for all these years. Now Europe is your responsibility. You're many times more richer and potentially more powerful than Russia. So you're going to have to undertake this. And Tulsi Gabbard has reignited that debate, I think. And frankly, with the Trump presidency, while Trump speaks correctly, we got as many troops in the Middle East now as we'd had when he took office, and more are going there. And we're very, very close to some kind of collision with Iran, which I don't think Trump wants, and the Iranians don't want, and we don't want. So I think Tulsi Gabbard has really reintroduced this issue from the side of the Democratic Party, and again, Trump, the president's sort of having it both ways. He's got the bellicosity, and he's got new wars, but he's got the bellicosity, and we have these issues sitting out there on the table: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya. All of these. What exactly are we going to do? Are we going to pull out? And I will say that that guy who was there, the Ohio congressman, was arguing with Tulsi.
Tim Ryan.
He said, we got to remain engaged. And there's no doubt about it, if you pull out of Afghanistan, the Taliban are very likely to take over after a so-called decent interval.
But we can say that always. Every time America leaves, another person's going to take over. Yeah, well, okay, so then we're never going to leave anywhere.
Well, I think that's exactly right. And this is, it goes back to the situation we confronted when we were with Nixon in Vietnam. You say if you pull the American troops out, that you're taking the risk of having a Holocaust there in Cambodia, which did occur, and of having just a massive takeover and murders of all our friends and allies in South Vietnam and in Laos, which is what happened in 1 million boat people in the South China Sea. And people look at the consequences of pulling the plug, and there's a real hesitancy to do it. And I think that affects the Pentagon today and the State Department. Everybody knows the risk you're going to take if you pull out, and they're not willing to pull out.
No, they don't, and no one wants the narrative to be, the last helicopter.
He lost the war.
Yeah, the last helicopter out of Kabul under X, under whatever president. They're petrified of it. If you could give Trump advice, Pat, in the next, this next year and a half before the election, just campaign advice, what would it be? Well,
I think first is, and this is more tactical than strategic. Well, strategically, I would say, stay out of a war. If you can avoid a war, I don't think the Iranians want a war, but the country doesn't want another war, and I would stay out of a war. Tactically, I would just let the Democrats drift further and further to the left, collect the string on what they're saying and what they've got in mind, put it all down on tape, and then as the candidate emerges, I think really zero in. If this is a referendum of versus Trump versus no Trump, that's a real risk for the Republicans, given the controversy surrounding the president and his poll numbers, and he's not gotten over 50%. But if it's Trump versus, socialist Elizabeth Warren, then you got Donnie Deutsch. Donnie Deutsch's thesis becomes operative. So if you get down to, I think Trump can beat any one of the candidates I've seen that's out there right now. And so I think it's going to have to, but it's going to have to wait, I think, until somebody emerges, and then really, as I say, collect all the things they've said and promised, so that you make it a contest between what we've got and the socialism and all the rest these people are promising, and what they're going to do, leaving the borders wide open, and what they're going to do to the economy, and what they're going to do to tax rates for corporations going back to 37%, and what they're going to do to taxes on the well-to-do, successful Americans. Yeah. And I think you've got a tremendous case, but it's when you got us versus them rather than us versus us that I think you'll do better.
And Pat, I have to say, when looking at the field and listening to them last night, I hearken back to Trump in the debate with Hillary, where there was just a few moments, I think, that defined the whole thing. It was when he said, "You want to rip the baby right out of the womb and kill the baby." Like when he won. I think he won the election just when he said that. And it was just,
it's exactly right. And
now they're worse. That's my point. Now the party's even gone further than that. That's what I'm saying. The Democrats haven't learned much, if anything.
I think that's exactly. See, when they're in their own group, they can sit there and talk with each other, and each of them moves further and further to the left, and the boldest one pulls them further. But they don't realize they're being pulled out of the center of politics further and further outside the mainstream of America. They're with their own group. And this is what happened to the Democratic Party in 2016. When they suddenly went to middle America, they said, wait a minute, all these folks who used to be with us are gone. And they thought they were doing a wonderful thing. And so I think the same thing is happening now. I mean, it's every time somebody comes through, and what do they say? Open borders, and we're not going to arrest anybody coming in, and it's a civil offense, not a crime, to break into the United States, and we're going to abolish ICE. And we got this border is not simply going to be this tragic situation of this man and his daughter by the time you get there. You're going to be talking, I think, in 2020 about the survival of the United States as one nation and one people, or whether we've got wide open borders and anybody can walk in.
Yeah, I mean, again, Trump has like 3 points to make. You would turn crossing the border into a civil jaywalking offense. Okay, it's basically jaywalking across the border. Number two,
borders.
Yeah, exactly. Number two, you want to kill even children who are already born. And number three, you believe in massive wealth confiscation, including taxes on personal property. Federal wealth tax on personal property, which is what they also were trying to, unpack after the debate in various interviews. Like, how would you do that? Would you go to people's houses and look at their sculptures, or like? And I think most people just see this, Pat, and they're like, "Yeah, Pat, they'd be going after all of your political memorabilia with Reagan and Nixon."
If it's 50 million, I don't quite reach the cutoff point here.
Exactly. Well, all these people like Soros and the Disney heiress, and
they can go get all his stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But all these people say we want to be taxed more. There's a provision in the tax code that allows people to actually write bigger checks to the IRS. So these people are all big talkers, but they'll never just do it.
An example for the rest of us.
Yeah, you go first. How's that? You go first. Pat Buchanan, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.